welcome back to the Golf Mom Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Nicole. I'm a golf mom, my son's caddy, and the founder behind the Instagram page of daily motivational and inspiration content for junior golfers. This podcast was created by a mom for parents who are in the junior golf world. I hope that you find this podcast helpful as we explore the highs and lows and all the lessons that come with raising junior golfers. We dive deep into the mental game of resilience, confidence, and the family balance that comes along with this beautiful game. Each week, I bring you conversations with other parents, junior golfers themselves, coaches, mindset mentors, and those who work in the golf industry and own businesses. The goal with this podcast is to help young athletes and their parents thrive on and off the course. You can catch this show on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. Be sure to check us out on Instagram for daily motivational content. You can check out our Amazon storefront for all of our recommended golf products. And a big thanks to our affiliate partners, Shipsticks, Fly a Flag, Fireaway Tea, Turtlebacks, and G4. We have exclusive listener discounts in our show notes. Affiliate links may earn a commission at no extra cost to you. And for all of our links, resources, recommended products, please visit the link in our bio on our Instagram, or you can visit us at golfmommindset.com. And if you are a golf brand looking to connect with junior golfers and their families, please send us a DM on Instagram or email us, which is listed in the show notes below. Today on the show, I have a rare opportunity to get an inside look of what it's like to be a caddy to the pros. Ryan Murray is a professional golf caddy currently working on the Korn Ferry Tour with his sights set on the PGA Tour. Based in Nashville, Ryan made a big midlife pivot at 40 years old, walking away from a 25-year career in sales and consulting after experiencing burnout and mental health challenges. Ryan brings a perspective to the game, one shaped by his own business and life experience, a deep understanding of communication and trust. He is married to his wife, Liberty, and is also the founder of New to You, a nonprofit dedicated to serving others through meaningful second chances. Ryan is passionate about helping parents better understand their role when caddying for their children, navigating the mental side of junior golf, and building healthier player-caddy relationships on and off the course. I am so excited for you all to hear from Ryan and this journey. Ryan, I am so excited to officially connect with you as a fellow Arizonan. I find that amazing and kind of a unique connection that we have, but I think our audience is going to be so excited to hear from you and how you've made a big life transition, leaving behind a 25-year career in sales to wake up one day and say you want to pursue your dream of working with the professionals and become a professional caddy at 40 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on too. I'm really excited to spend a little bit of time chatting with you today. It's interesting that the name of your podcast is the Golf Mindset because or Golf Mom Mindset, because the decision to move on from one career to another was 100% mindset based. I spent almost 25 years in retail sales and consulting, where I did 16 years of retail sales, and then I did almost 7 years of business to business sales and consulting. So the last job that I had, I worked for a company that supplied parts and chemicals and tires to car dealerships all over the United States. And I would travel around the country and I would work with different car dealerships from all different makes and models of cars. And I would coach the service team in the service department, how to have better sales tactics, how to have better customer service skills. And then I would help build profitability strategies for managers and dealership owners to increase their profitability through their service department. And the reason that I did that is like one of the things that I really love more than anything else, just my personality, is to be able to mentor, coach, and help other people succeed. You know, it's really awesome for me as like a competitor to win and as a competitor to succeed on my own. But I get a lot more professional fulfillment in business when I get to help other people achieve their goals and I get to watch other people achieve success. So that's why I really liked the sales and consulting aspect of it, especially when I was doing business to business. But I just reached a point where that was not fulfilling anymore, and it became more stressful, and it turned into just like a really toxic relationship as far as like my mindset as far as work was concerned. And I just reached a point at 40 where I needed to get out because it was really starting to have an impact on my mental health, and it was starting to leak into my personal life, and it was just starting to create a lot of problems for me. And so I just knew that I needed to get out of that job. But again, my mindset in that moment was not, okay, let's leave this one job and immediately go start working another job. I knew that there was something deeper that was going on, and that I needed a break. I needed a certain amount of time in order to really find out what it was that was causing me all the angst in my life, and figure out what I needed to do to fix it, and then fix it. Because if I wasn't able to do that, then no matter what I decided to do going forward, I was still just going to be unhappy and miserable.
Mhm.
And so that led me to using my sales prowess to convince my wife to let me quit my job and take an entire year off of not working altogether, just so that I could play golf all over the country. And part of that is because I love playing golf and I love being able to travel. But the other part of that was I was very, very hopeful that I could eventually find some sort of avenue where I could get back to working, but have it be in the golf industry. So I figured if I spent a year traveling the country, playing golf, meeting people through social media, that it might open a door to something else that I could do that I really loved. And turns out kind of worked out.
That is honestly amazing. And Ryan, I'm impressed that you had such this deep intuition and followed your own heart and just knew, hey, because, as you know, life transitions and you can have a season of life that something works for you and doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. And then wake up one day and be like, this doesn't fit anymore. And I think that's okay. And I think a lot of people are afraid to commit to certain jobs or, positions because they think it's a forever sentence of sort. But that's not always the case. You can wake up one day and be like, that worked for me, in this previous season of life, and now it's changed. For me as a mom, I've kind of learned that because there's so many different little seasons that you have with kids as they grow up, that it's forever evolving and changing. And I have a hard time with change. It's taught me, forced me to be okay with change. And now I look forward to it, saying, you don't know what the next 10 years will hold. So I think that's really inspiring that you told yourself, no, I need this time. I need to reflect, chase your passion.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the fear of change is probably going to resonate with a lot of people, because that's the one thing that I've noticed for myself and most other people, is that we're all just so absolutely terrified of change, especially when it comes to major change. And I think what allowed me the ability to get to the position where I'm at right now is the first real job that I had as an adult came at 18 years old. I worked for a company for 16 years. So from 18 to 34, my entire life was dedicated to just one business and one company. And it was the most terrifying thing that I had ever experienced at that point professionally, was to leave that company because of being unhappy working there.
Sure.
But once I had done that once, and I had realized, hey, this isn't really that big of a deal. Like, I can always go find a job somewhere. Then
Yeah.
when it came to that second point of me getting to another point of unhappiness and needing to take a year off, I wasn't afraid of that change anymore, because I had already gone through it and I had already experienced it. And I do also want to just kind of like add in there, I'm very fortunate that I have a very successful wife in her, what she does for work. And that she's incredibly supportive of me, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be able to be where I'm at either. But we also, we don't have children. And I know that for a lot of parents out there, it's easy for someone like me to be like, oh, don't be afraid of change and like make the leap and just get out of an unhappy situation. But I also understand and realize, and I can empathize with a lot of people are just in a situation where maybe that's not a reality for them. And they don't have the ability to just make a big giant change like that, because they have so many more responsibilities that they have to take care of that I didn't have to worry about. So I'm not aloof to that either.
Sure, sure. Well, it's interesting you say that because I do think that does potentially prohibit people from pursuing certain passions, dreams, business careers. And it might be 2 a.m. and there's something that you want to go after, you find a way to make it happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a friend of mine that's been very successful in business in his own personal life. And he said something that really resonated with me a long time ago. And he just basically simply said, even though I have a job, I have never once stopped looking for a different job, because the best time for somebody to look for some alternative line of work is when you're already employed somewhere. It's the
So
least
true.
stressful time to do it. and he's constantly looking to see if there's something else that he might be more
Yeah.
passionate about, or something that he might enjoy more, or something that could potentially pay more. So that would be my thing, is like, if you're willing to just look for something else, if you're unhappy with what you're doing, take the time when you're not at work to just look and see what else is out there, because I promise you, that old cliche of the grass is not always greener on the other side can ring true. But I've found that the grass may not be greener on the other side, but there's still grass on the other side. You know what I
That's a good
mean?
point. What would you say for you was probably the most helpful when you took that year off and you were golfing? Do you feel like networking and meeting the right people helped you kind of take this final plunge into the world of working with professionals? What kind of catapulted to saying, okay, now that I've had my year off, this is what I'm going to do full steam ahead?
Yeah, networking was a massive part of this, but even more importantly though, I was able to put myself in the mindset of being open to possibilities if they presented themselves. And I think that's such a huge thing for so many people, is that you may have plenty of opportunities that have come across you in your path in your journey in life. But if you weren't in a place in your life where you were ready to say yes to something, or you were willing to accept the risk of, potentially chasing a dream, then you're always going to miss out on it. Right. And so, because I was in a place where I could be open to opportunities that came my way, when I started networking and going down that path, that's what really allowed those opportunities and those doors to open for me, because I was meeting so many different people from so many different backgrounds that had so many different experiences, and I had nothing else to lose. I had nothing else to really do. So it was easy when I met people that said, "Hey, can you come do this? Can you come and do that?" That I could just say yes every time. And then that's what led me down the path that I got to now. Yeah. So the first person that I would probably give a lot of credit to, as far as me going down the path that I'm on now, is a young man that I met a few years ago when I was doing my own podcasting in the golf space. And he was the first person that I had ever talked to who was related. He was involved in professional golf as a caddy, and he was a fairly good golfer on his own right. His dad was a PGA professional. So like, he had grown up in the space of golf in like a competitive way. But he was the first person that I had ever met that was just so absolutely determined and passionate to be a caddy on the PGA Tour versus being a professional golfer himself. And it was that conversation that I had with him that really opened my eyes to what that world could present for me and what that world could provide for me if I decided to go down that road. And at that time, I was the guy that was side hustling with my podcast. I was working a normal job. I was just doing the podcasting on the side, but that never left my brain at just how passionate he was about being a caddy versus being a player. And I realized within myself, I'm nowhere near good enough to play competitive golf on any level, let alone like high level golf. But I'm really good at talking to people. I'm really good at understanding people's personalities. I'm really good at motivating. I'm really good at understanding and empathizing. And so I felt like being a caddy would be like the next best thing, you know?
Right. Well, and I think just recognizing your own skills and talents and saying, I have this in me, like, how best can I utilize this?
Yeah. Yeah. And then, the next biggest people that I would give credit to are the two guys from the YouTube golf channel, the Divot Dudes, Adam and Connor. This is where that networking and like putting yourself in a position to be able to say it came into play. Adam and Connor had reached out to me one day because I had met them through social media, and they just asked if I would be willing to be an extra cameraman for them while they filmed a video for their YouTube channel. They didn't want me to be a part of the video. They just wanted me to hold a camera and be behind the scenes. And I said, yeah, absolutely. Because I just knew that like, that's how you network with people, is you spend time around them and you just kind of get to know them a little bit more. Turns out the person that they were filming content with that day was a professional golfer trying to get on a professional tour. And in his spare time, when he wasn't playing in tournaments, he would caddy at a local country club in Nashville, Tennessee. And so because I was there and I was around them the entire day, I had plenty of time to talk to him about caddying at that club. And then that led to me being able to start caddying at a club. So like, the networking thing is just so huge. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know what connections you're going to gain, and you never know where it's going to lead you. But if you always say no, it'll never happen.
That's amazing. Well, and I think too, like taking on a role that, I don't know, maybe some people might say, oh, that's beneath me. I want to be on camera, not on, behind the camera. And they might have turned it down. But you saw the opportunity and were like, you know what? I'm going to be amongst the people I want to be, getting to know and network, and to have that insight and jump on it. I mean, look what it turned into. That's really
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Yeah,
so
and again I lean back on my experiences. You know, the company that I worked for 16 years, I started at the bottom level. I started at the lowest entry level position that you could possibly get to. And over the course of 16 years, I was able to get myself to one of the highest level positions that you could get to. And so I had that experience and that confidence within me that I'm never going to be too good to start at the bottom. And I always know that, you know, there's a lot of things that you can learn from anything when you start at the bottom and you work your way up that you're never going to know unless you go through those rungs on the ladder. So I've never been afraid to just get my foot in the door and start wherever I have to start in order to
mhm.
get to where I want to go.
That's great. And honestly, it's great advice for us adults here, but I feel like this would really is amazing advice for young kids and juniors who have big dreams and want to pursue, even if it's not in the golf world, pursue anything. To your point, it's like, say they're working at a restaurant, like they shouldn't be afraid to do, the bottom of the barrel stuff to know that, hey, one day you could be the manager here. And just know that, to your point, when you kind of understand how things work from bottom up, that's really where it's going to help you with your skills in the long run, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's, you have to have you have to have a certain amount of humility and you have to be a certain amount of humble in order to do that. Everybody wants to be, the best and everybody wants to be at the top of the food chain, but sometimes the only path to get there is to start at the lowest position possible. And just especially for young kids out there, don't ever think that you're too good to do anything because you're not.
Right. Well, and that's probably a really negative mindset to have that actually might hinder you and hinder opportunities. So, talk to me a little bit about, you talked about these people that you met that had inspired you and then eventually leading to a position at the club as a caddy. What golf course was this? How did that happen? And then how did you transition from that to then working with pros? Was it networking or talk to me a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, it's good questions. When once the door opened where I had the opportunity to become a caddy, I was very self-aware that there were things that I didn't know and that I needed to know. And I felt the best place to do that is at a country club when you're just club caddying for people because there's less on the line, if we're being honest, right? All you have to do is just not make somebody mad and you can keep doing your job. And so for me, it was like there was two things going on in my head. One is I need to get my foot in the door and I need to learn the things that I don't know. The other part of that though was just because I thought that I wanted to be a caddy and I thought that it would be fun and I thought that I would enjoy it doesn't mean that I was going to. Sometimes you don't know what it's like until you actually do it. And I knew that there was a part of me that, I was in the mindset of I want to go work for pros, but if I hate this, then I don't want to do that either. So working at a country club allowed me to learn the things that I needed to learn that were just kind of simple, basic things, but then also gave me the ability to build up that experience to determine, is this something that I really enjoy and that I really want to pursue going farther with? And once I had done that for about 6 months or 8 months, that's when it really clicked in my head, like, this is awesome. I really want to do this. And now I need to start, working my way towards helping professional golfers. And because of networking, I had met a couple of people that were already full-time caddies on the Corn Ferry Tour. And so I was able to just reach out to them and use them as mentors and lean on them for some guidance and some knowledge about how I could get to where I am. And it's funny, there's so many different people out there that put all these things on social media and put them out in the world like motivational speakers. And you see all these ads for people who are like, do you want to make $1 million in the next 3 months? All you have to do is follow these 5 easy steps, right?
You
And they
even
put
got the
this
voice
information
down.
out there. Yeah, yeah. They put this information out there and it's readily available, but so many people just won't listen to it. They won't listen to all 5 tips or they won't implement all 5 tips and then they never make $1 million and they're like, "Well, this was just a scam." And that's the thing is like if someone's giving you step-by-step instructions on how you can achieve your goal, just do what they're telling you to do. Follow the steps that they're telling you to take because it worked for them and more often than not, it's going to work for you. And I think where people get themselves in trouble is that they're just either not willing to listen to everything or they're not willing to do everything. And then they never see the results that they're hoping for.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that because I don't know if you listen to Mel Robbins at all or her podcast, but she talked very much about admits like she's successful because she literally copied others. But people are afraid. They're like, well, I don't want to copy. What will they think if I copy? She's like, so many people have already paved the way. They've done it. If you literally follow their same steps, you can be on the same trajectory. But so many people either that, to your point, don't want to do the steps, or they're afraid, oh, so-and-so is going to think I've copied them. But everybody's their original person anyway. So even if you copy someone, you're never all going to be exactly the same. But we're in a time in a world now that information is so readily available that you can literally have a step-by-step guide of here's what to do to achieve this goal. But yeah, so maybe some people don't want to do the whole thing or anything like that. But it sounds like you followed the exact advice of some of these people.
And it's so interesting that people feel that way about the I don't want to copy somebody else, because if you look at almost every example in the world around us, especially in business, all it is copying other people. When you go to the grocery store and you're buying groceries for your family that day and you walk down the cereal aisle, you see 100 different boxes of cereal out there. Well, that's because one company created cereal and then 99 other companies copied that idea. They just came out with a slightly different version of it. How many different versions of soda do you see on the shelves? Or how many different banks exist? How many different grocery store chains are there? How many different fast food chains exist? It's all just one business copying another.
Truly.
And then when you look at professional sports, look at, the NFL. We just had the Super Bowl yesterday. The reason that quarterbacks throw the football the way that they throw the football is because somebody else before them figured out that this was the best way to do it, and they learned by copying other people on how to do it. You could say the same thing for any other sport out there. Golfers, they putt the way that they putt because somebody else did it and it worked and they copied it.
Totally. Well, gosh, there's how many people out there wanting to copy Tiger Woods' workout regime, hoping that if they work out religiously the way Tiger Woods says, that they'll be, on his level.
Yep. So don't be afraid to copy people. Copy people as much as I wouldn't plagiarize people.
Right.
But if somebody has an idea that you enjoy and that you like and you've seen to be successful for them and you can put your own personal spin on it,
yeah,
don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah. It's more of an inspiration, right?
Yeah.
So you started working at the club and then you decided, okay, after 6 months, I'm going to go full steam ahead and try to work with the pros. Talk to me about how that looks, how you qualified. Is that something you apply for, or did you put your name out there and then they seeked you out? How does all that work? And this is coming from someone who has no idea. And I have a feeling a lot of other parents have no idea how this works either. We see the caddies out there with the pros at the Masters and the Corn Ferry Tour, and we're like, how did that guy get that job? Like, I think we all wonder how it works. So can you kind of walk me through how that looked for you?
Yeah. So for me, it started by reaching out to golfers that were going through PGA Tour Q School. And so for anybody that's listening to this, if you're not familiar with Q School, there are 4 qualifying tournaments that professional golfers can play at the end of every single year. And it's like a meritocracy, right? So the first event is called pre-qualifying. It's a 4-day golf tournament. They pay thousands of dollars to enter into this tournament. And if they can finish in, say, like the top 15 players or 20 players in that tournament after 4 days, then they have earned the right to advance to the next stage, which is stage 1. And then they do the same thing, 4-round tournament. If you play well enough, you advance to stage 2. And then once you get past stage 2, it goes to final stage. So all these professional golfers every year, this usually starts in like September, October timeframe, and it comes to a culmination in December. They're all fighting for 5 PGA Tour positions, and that's it. So if you make it all the way to final stage of Q School and you can finish at the end of that 4-day tournament in the top 5, then you earn the right to go play on the PGA Tour for the next year. And then everybody that finishes below the top 5, I think it's like the top 40, let's just say, I could be wrong, so you guys listening can fact check me. They'll earn full status on the Corn Ferry Tour, which is 1 step lower than the PGA Tour. So it's like the stepping stone to get onto the PGA Tour.
Got it.
And then if you finish below that, then you get, I think, status on like PGA Tour Americas, which is another step lower than the Corn Ferry Tour. So all these guys are just fighting to get to the last, I think it's like the top 75 players get to go to Q School finals every year.
Only 5
as long as you make it.
Only 5 get to actually advance beyond that. So you could go all the way to the school and still not advance.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And so the
Sounds
whole point
like
of
Navy
this
SEAL
is
training a little bit. Like everyone's going to drop off. Like only a few slots are open.
minus a few broken bones and some hypothermia.
Yeah, there you go.
But, so yeah, all these guys they're just fighting for a job. They're trying to get some sort of status on a professional tour so that way they have an opportunity to play in professional tournaments and earn money that way. And, for a lot of these guys, their sponsors, their sponsorships that they have are solely dependent on their status every year. You could be a professional golfer, but not have any playing status on a professional tour. And so for a business, like, would it make sense for you to be a sponsor for that player if you're not going to be playing in tournaments and potentially being on TV? So there's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure for these guys. When you're playing at that level, you don't have to have a caddy. There's plenty of guys that go through Q school that don't use caddies and they prefer to just be on their own. So they'll either have like a push cart or they'll carry their own bag. When you get to Q school finals, it's required that you use a caddy. So kind of backtracking, I started at Q school. The idea was, for me, it was stage 1 of Q school. So this is like the second stage. This is like the second round of Q school of the 4.
So quick question, Ryan, for you to go to the Q schools, did you have to qualify, or is there a different version of Q school that's just for caddies?
No. So yeah, as a caddy, there's no qualifying that we have to do. It's purely networking, and it's purely just reaching out to people and saying, hey, I'm a caddy. I'm willing to work for you. Do you want me to come and work for you? So it's literally like a numbers game. Every Q school stage has a handful of different locations. And then every tournament has, about 150, 160 guys that are playing in each tournament. And it literally just came down to, I reached out to every single player in every single field and said, I'm a caddy. I don't have any experience with professional golfers, but this is what I'm trying to do. I'm willing to come anywhere. I'm willing to help you out. Like, if you just want to give me a chance. You message 500 to 1,000 guys. At some point, somebody's going to say, yeah, come help me out. So that's where it started for me. And the idea is, like, you find a player in Q school that lets you caddy for them. They do well. They advance to the next stage. They keep you with them. Then they advance to the next stage, and then they keep you with. So,
Sure.
but for
You kind of
caddies,
become their lucky charm, right?
Yeah, or just honestly, you'd be surprised what professional golfers need out of a caddy. Like, I helped a guy in the Bahamas, and he literally asked me to remind him if the ball was on like a downhill lie or an uphill lie, because for him, he's so focused on other things that are going on the golf course in that moment that sometimes he forgets to pay attention to how the ball is sitting in relationship to his feet. And then that can affect how the ball flies in the air. And so it was the first time I'd ever had a professional golfer ask me to do that for him. But that's the kind of stuff, like, there are guys on tour that use trivia questions. Like, they have their caddies ask them trivia questions in between golf shots just to keep their mind occupied, so they're not focusing on what they have to do on the golf course, and they can kind of stay relaxed. So it's weird. Like, as caddies, we do a lot of stuff that people wouldn't even think about.
Well, you're obviously doing the physical aspect of carrying the load, literally, but sounds like you're also carrying the mental load, and whether it's helping remind them of things that they can't focus on because there's too much, or distracting them to keep them in a positive mindset. Talk a little bit more about that. And I feel like a lot of parents, myself included, could learn from you, because there's many times on the course, for example, my son, who's 8, he gets very frustrated with himself, and it breaks my heart because it's not any pressure I'm putting on him at all. He's doing it to himself, which is good and help makes him competitive. But I find when he gets stressed or upset, I find sometimes a hard time to turn it around or to say something helpful, because many times I've said things that have just made it worse, like, oh, knock it off, or just anything. And I've made it worse. So obviously you're working with adults, not children, but I feel like you have a pretty good mindset. So I would love to hear some advice on what you do with the pros.
Yeah, I would say, before talking about what I would do with the pros, I would say I think it's incredibly difficult for parents to be caddies for their kids when they're playing golf. Would not encourage parents to caddy for their kids. I would say that if you're in a position where you could afford to hire a caddy to take care of your child during like important tournaments, you should definitely do so. It may only cost you like a couple $100 a day, but it allows you to alleviate the stress from yourself, but it also puts your child in a position where they may not want to embarrass themselves around a stranger, which would then automatically reduce the amount of times they might have a mental breakdown or get super, super frustrated or like throw a club or something. You'd be surprised, working with adults is not much different than working with children. Not to say that the pro golfers are like big children, but I mean, it's kind of funny. Sometimes they are when they're doing practice rounds and they're like hanging out on the putting green and they're all talking to each other. It looks like a bunch of little kids at Little League hanging out.
Well, it's funny because, we were talking previously about the Waste Management Open, which just happened, and there was a scene from the weekend where Scotty took his club and banged it on his legs. And
Yeah.
It reminded me of my son because my son has done that. And like in my mind, for that little moment, I'm like, Scotty reminded me of like a little kid who's kind of throwing a little bit of a tantrum, which was very
Yeah.
rare to see from Scotty. But it's like everyone has those moments, right?
Yeah, golf is just an incredibly difficult game. You're never going to perfect it. It is always going to tear your heart out and chew it up and spit it out. I would say as a professional caddy working with professional golfers, that is one of the most important things that we have to be able to do is know when to say something and especially when not to say something. Generally speaking, right after a golfer hits a bad shot and you can visibly see that they're frustrated about it, that is probably the best time for you to just keep your mouth shut and not say anything in that instant, right? I would say as far as parents caddying for their children, I think the hardest work is going to come prior to them starting their round of golf and prior to that tournament. I would encourage any parent, whether it's a mother or father, to just sit down and have a like real conversation, just a one-on-one conversation with your kid before they go to a tournament and let them know a couple different things. Number one, I'm not mom and I'm not dad when I'm caddying for you. Number two, you are the boss and I am your employee. So any decision that you want to make on the golf course, it is 100% your choice. I am not here to tell you what to do. And then number three would be having a conversation with your kid and telling them you're going to have moments where you're going to be frustrated out there. You're going to hit a bad shot. You're going to miss a putt. You are going to be upset. It is perfectly normal. That is perfectly okay. You are not the only one. But here's how we are going to manage it together while we're doing this tournament. I will give you 10 to 30 seconds after you hit a bad shot or you miss a putt to let you get as frustrated as you want, to let you be as upset as you want. But as soon as that time is up, we are going to forget that happened and we are going to move on with our life and we're going to focus on the next shot and we're just going to let it all be in the past. I think if you can do those three things as a parent, the first two are the most important. You got to let them know that you're not there to be mom or dad. And then you absolutely have to make sure that they are completely comfortable with the fact that it's their decision on the golf course. And the hardest part for a parent is to see their kid maybe choosing to do something that you know in your heart of hearts is like the worst possible decision or like a terrible choice and not say anything and just let them do it, right? So again, the hardest work that you can do as a caddy for your kids is to just have that honest conversation with them before you get to the tournament. And then when it comes to being in the tournament, in those moments, let's say, you mentioned at the beginning of this, you don't really know much about golf, right?
Correct.
But let's just say that you know enough about golf where your son wants to hit a shot over some water and you know he's not capable of doing it, right? But he's adamant, like, I want to hit it over the water, right? In that moment, when you're caddying for him, you can say things. I like to phrase things in questions instead of sentences, because if you phrase it as a question, it's giving them the option to make a decision instead of you telling them what to do, right? And this is where like the sales background comes into play. So you can tell them like, hey, I know you want to try and hit it over the water, but do we really need to right now? Like, is this the right time for that kind of shot? Or you can say, hey, I know you really want to hit it over the water, but like, what if we hit it over here instead? That way we don't have to worry about it possibly going in the water just in case something weird happens. And then you have a much better shot on your next one to be in a better spot, right? And letting them make those choices on the golf course, I think that's where you're going to have a huge impact as a parent caddying for your kid.
When it gives them the opportunity to be independent, to come up with their own, like maybe feel empowered with the decision they made. And to your point, whether it was still a bad shot, eventually, hopefully, they get the confidence to then know, eventually to trust their own gut, right? Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, there's going to be that separation from mom and dad, and they can't always count on us. And if they count on us too much to tell us what shot to make, then when they're older and we're not there to help them with that, they're going to be like paralyzed, right?
Right.
It's probably good to start this at a very young age so that way they feel more capable and build that confidence.
Yeah, I agree. And what I've experienced from a lot of junior golfers nowadays, and I don't know if this is the case for you and your son and your husband, but a lot of junior golfers have some type of golf coach, right? I'm assuming your son has some version of a golf coach that's helping him with his golf.
And he has a very good bond with him and listens to him more than us, which is great. I'd rather please listen to your coach. Your coach is where it's at.
So this is something that we do as professional caddies with, professional golfers too is they all have swing coaches, some of them have putting coaches, and we know about conversations that they've been having recently with their coaches leading into tournaments, right? And so when we get into the heart of a tournament and the pressure's on and they need to perform at a high level, we have that information where they might be in a weird position and we can look at them and be like, hey, let's remember let's remember what your putting coach was talking to you about, what you've been working on with your putting coach, and let's execute on that, right? Or, what have you been working on with your swing coach this week? Let's really focus on that swing thought. You know what I mean? So
So
as
is
a
that,
parent go ahead.
oops, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, so like as a parent, if you're on the course and you're caddying for your child in that moment, and it is a high stress situation for you and for them, and you're not sure what to say, maybe something that you could offer them is, hey, what would your coach tell you to do in this situation? Again, you're asking them a question because you want them to think about it, you want them to make the decision, but you're leading them down the path that you think might be a better direction, especially when it's a stressful decision or a questionable decision. And just say, hey, if your coach was standing here and this was a practice round, like what would they tell you to do right now? Let them answer you and then be like, well, why don't we just do that?
Love that. And I can say firsthand, I've seen that work with my son. He struggles with putting, and his coach did a whole setup for him. So the coach even said, okay, when you're there, because I don't really know how to explain the setup, nor do I actually know the proper. So I would be no help to him to say, do this, do that. His coach really dialed it in with him and just said, if you see him rushing, which is what he's always does, just say, hey, setup, putting setup. And that should be like a trigger in his head.
Yeah.
Because then he's like, okay, what would coach want me to do? And
Yeah.
I did see, like, every time I see it, I'm like, oh my gosh, he goes through all the steps. I'm like, okay, follow coach's setup. You talked about how you're kind of like, okay, what have the coaches taught you this week? Is this something you ask them, or do you have a relationship with their coaches as well? And you're texting them saying, what tips do you have for me in this tournament?
That's a great question. So a lot of times we're present when their coach is doing that work with them, especially if it's a tournament week and it's during a practice round, maybe on the golf course or it's on the range. So we have the opportunity to listen to those conversations. I can give you a perfect example. Last year, I was helping a guy that was playing in one of the playoff events for the Corn Ferry Tour. And he had just been like, his putting just wasn't where he wanted it to be. So he asked his putting coach to put him through like a coaching lesson on the practice putting green of the tournament course. And I was with him the entire time. And we built an entire conversation, the three of us together, where his putting coach was working with him, but also working with me. And we came up with a game plan of like, hey, when we're on the golf course, why don't you read the putt for yourself? And then you tell me what, like the whole thing that his putting coach was working on him with was focusing on how hard to hit the ball first. So what speed do you want the ball to enter the hole? Once you determine how hard you want to hit it, then you can pick the line that you want to hit it on and then go from there. And that was like the thing that his putting coach was working on him with. And so for me, because I was standing there, we all came together and we said, hey, when we're on the course and we're playing in a tournament round, what if you tell me what speed you want to hit it, and then I'll tell you whether I like that or not, right? And then that was our way of keeping him focused on what it was that his putting coach was trying to help him accomplish on the greens. And then it was a way for him to get that reassurance of, am I making a good decision here or not? And then, so it's just stuff like that. I think, if you have an opportunity to, as a parent, and you're going to be caddying for your kids, maybe spend a little bit of time standing right next to their coach so that when their coach is working with them on things, you can ask them those questions or you can be a part of that conversation. And then when you're in a tournament and you say things like that to your child, they're not wondering why you're saying it. They're realizing like you were a part of that conversation in the first place and you're just trying to remind them of what they're trying to do.
Sure. And in that way, you're just all on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. I will say too, it's interesting because I have the perspective of, I have hired a caddy for my son a couple times, mostly because I had back surgery and was really physically unable to help him. So we made the decision we'll hire a caddy for a few of his tournaments. And I got to hang back and watch, and everything from behavior to your point earlier in the podcast, you said they're going to act just a certain way with a different adult. And I could tell there were moments he probably wanted to throw his club, throw a fit, cry, anything, but he's going to act different with someone else. And then one of the caddies we ended up hiring was a college golfer. And I think my son thought they, looked up to him like, we're friends, we're bros, right? So there was even an aspect of him wanting to be cool and not look at like a little baby. So he would never like show up too much emotion around this guy because he's wanting to be cool in front of his cool caddy. So it was really beautiful to see kind of this maturity and transformation in him that doesn't really happen when I'm present, but it's okay. I've accepted that as mom, but I think every parent should, and I've talked with a few of the other parents and we said, wouldn't it be something if we all switched, maybe one of these tournaments, we should literally switch our children with each other and caddy for each other's kids because we're going to be different with someone else's kid and that kid's going to act different with us. So it might be something we'll try in the future because I feel like our kids could actually end up being pretty successful at the tournament if we just all switch kids and don't caddy for our own kid.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like how many times have you ever told your kid before they go hang out with their friend at their friend's house, hey, like make sure you're on your best behavior, like don't embarrass me in front of their parents, like those kinds of things, right? And it's the same thing. It's just that psychological trigger within people where kids feel incredibly safe around their parents to the point where they can act however they want to act and they're not stressed about like what the repercussions are going to be.
Right. It's that unconditional love. They know they can say they hate you and know that you're still going to love them.
Yeah. And then they get to that point with their coaches too. If they've been with their coach for long enough, I've seen a lot of coaches try to caddy for young players, junior players as well. And I also think that that is a bad combination at the same time because I feel like the same thing happens. Kids are with their coach for so long during practice sessions. They build up that same level of comfort with their coach that they would with their parent. So then when they get frustrated on the golf course, they don't have a problem throwing a club. They don't have a problem having a temper tantrum or a meltdown or any of those things because they still feel that same level of comfort versus, hey, here's some random person that you've never met in your life. And today's the first day you're going to have to go spend 4 or 5 hours with them. Don't act like an idiot.
Right, pretty much. Right. There's actually a little bit of that pressure to think, okay, I need to like hold it together. And to your point, having your coach caddy for you, while it might seem like a good idea, there maybe is a level of closeness that could work as a disadvantage.
Yeah. The other thing that I see happen too when coaches try to caddy for players is they spend too much time trying to coach their player during a tournament round. It's never going to help anything. When you can coach somebody all you want when all you're doing is hitting golf balls on a driving range. That's the point. That's the time where you coach them. But in the middle of a tournament round, I've seen too many coaches caddying for their players and they're like, hey, no, you got to really focus on your grip here and like really focus on your putting process here. And like, you missed that one out to the right because you didn't get your hips all the way through the swing and like all these different things. And it's just too much information to be trying to put into somebody's mind, especially a kid. I mean, grown adults wouldn't be able to handle that, let alone like an 8 or 10-year-old.
Definitely.
So yeah, I would really encourage parents, like if you can, don't caddy for your own child. Don't let your kids coach caddy for them either. I like your idea of maybe the parents just switch it up and say, hey, let's have like a parents pool where we're all going to the same tournament. Let's all caddy for each other's kids. I think that would be a huge thing. I think you guys would be surprised the difference that everyone's kids would act on the golf course. And I think it'd be kind of a fun thing.
Watch all 3 of our kids like place the top 3. We're like, okay, we're now doing this forever, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and you guys are so fortunate that you're in Arizona too. There's so many golf courses out there that have professional caddies that work at them. It would be incredibly easy for you to find professional caddies to help your kids.
See, I never really knew that or understood that. So I guess for advice for myself and other parents, if we go to a course and book a tee time, many times in my case, I'm only booking 9 holes because of my son's age, or we're calling up for twilight time or junior rates and stuff. When you call the golf shop, do you just say, hey, do you have a caddy available for hire? Or what do we say when you call the golf shop to find a caddy?
Yeah. So if it's, again, I would only do this if your kid was playing in a tournament, like a 2 or 3 day long tournament.
Okay. Gotcha.
But you just call the golf courses in Arizona that are like really high end golf courses. So like, TPC Scottsdale. If you call there and you say, hey, my child is a junior golfer. He's got a really big 3-day tournament coming up. I'm looking to hire a caddy to help him out. Can you put me in touch with your caddy master? Then that person will have the list of all the caddies in Arizona.
Got it. So you're kind of hiring them away from the golf course and saying, I just need to borrow you for the weekend and I'm going to hire you. Awesome.
Yeah,
and they'd be willing to give you that
like
information.
Yeah, you can call. What I would do is just get on Google and say, "Hey, which golf courses in Arizona have a caddy program or have caddies to offer?" And then those are the golf courses that you can call.
Okay.
There's also a company that's called Caddy Master, if I'm not mistaken, that outsources caddies to golf courses all over the United States. And so that would probably be like the best place to start,
Okay.
because they're going to have like the largest pool of people to choose from.
Yeah. I love it. Awesome. I'm going to look into it, and I hope other parents do as well. With relation to you being a caddy and traveling and finding pros to work with, can you talk a little bit about the financial aspect of, you know, caddy hires you. I'm sorry, when a pro hires you as their caddy, are you flying yourself out there? Are they? Are you winning a portion of their earnings? How does all that work? I guess what's the ultimate goal with that, in terms of how you get paid?
Yeah, so it's a very common question that I've been getting a lot on social media, and I'm trying to do the best that I can to answer it without answering it, just
Yeah.
because
Oh, and I
I
don't
don't.
need specific amounts or anything. So just
Yeah,
more
yeah.
of like how the logistics of it work.
Yeah, so all of the travel expenses fall on our shoulders initially. So we cover all of our airfare, hotels, food, gas, rental cars, everything. We assume that expense right off the bat. And then every player and caddy will have their own conversation about compensation. Players, that you just negotiate how much you get paid. And normally as a caddy, you'll get paid for like an entire week during a
I see.
professional tournament, because we have to be there. I guess I could maybe back up a little bit. For a professional tournament on the Corn Ferry Tour or on the PGA Tour, every single round of golf that a player wants to play on the golf course, they are required by the tournament rules to have a caddy carry their golf bag for them. So if the tournament starts on a Thursday and they get there on a Monday, and they want to play 18 holes on Monday, and they want to play 18 holes on Tuesday, and then they have a 9-hole pro-am on Wednesday, a caddy has to carry their bag for all 3 of those days on top of the 4 days for the tournament. And so they'll pay us a certain amount of money for the entire week of being out there,
Gotcha.
because
And that's
we're
all
helping them on Monday
prearranged
through
before
Sunday.
you even commit to flying out there and everything. Do you sign a
Yes,
contract or
yes and no.
anything?
Sometimes
Yeah.
sometimes that conversation is had before you fly out there. Other times, like in my case, I'm less concerned about the money aspect and more concerned about having a job and like working with somebody. So a lot of times for me, I know that talking about money can be awkward for a lot of people. So I just have the conversation of, "Hey, do you want me to come and work for you?" "Yes." "Okay, cool. I'll be there." And then once I'm there, I'll have the conversation about the money. Other people wouldn't. Some people don't think that that's a smart way to go about it. So I've been told that's just how I operate my
Is
business.
it a
But yeah, so
handshake deal, or do you sign like a formal contract and all of that?
yeah, it's all just a handshake deal. There are no contracts. There's no written agreements with signatures or any of that kind of stuff. It's just like, "Hey, bud, come work for me. I'll pay you X amount of money for 7 days. And then if I get to a point where I win any money from the prize purse, I'll give you a certain percentage of that." And then that's all negotiated between the player and the caddy.
Has there ever been any concern about trying to find the right word, like getting scammed or screwed over at all, or someone not paying what they said that they would? Is there ever concern of that, or do you know of caddies that's happened to, or is it just the gentleman's handshake in the golf world that doesn't happen?
Yeah, I'm just kind of like a skeptic in some cases, in a lot of cases. And I always have it in the back of my head that, maybe I won't get paid, but I just kind of chalk that up to like, it is what it is if that happens. Fortunately, I've never experienced that. I don't really know of anybody that has. I mean, it is just kind of like a gentleman's situation where most of the golfers that are out here, they're very honest and they
Sure.
live
Well,
up
you
to their
probably get a
word.
vibe too. If there was something that fell off and you're like, you know what, I feel like I'm going to get scammed out of this. I'm sure there's part of you that would like to have that intuition and just kind of like, maybe I need to get this locked in before, before everything comes
Yeah.
to an end at the week, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, that's the thing too, is like most people don't realize this, but the golfers don't get paid until usually like 2 or 3 days after the tournament ends. So in a lot of situations, like I think a big misconception of Corn Ferry Tour golfers in particular is that these guys are all just a bunch of millionaires out here playing golf. When in fact, most of the golfers that are on like the Corn Ferry Tour in specific are, if not broke, close to broke, just an endless amount of money so that they can just throw it around willy nilly. So a lot of times golfers that we're working for, they have to wait until they get their prize money from the golf tournament before they can even pay us for working for them that week. So, we might fly out on a Sunday and then not get paid until the following Wednesday, like a week and a half later, just because of whatever that situation looks like for that golfer.
But it sounds like, when you team up with someone, you're willing to take that risk or that delay, knowing that, hey, like, what if this person really makes it big and I'm their go-to guy? So you're kind of taking a chance on them and the
Yep.
belief of them advancing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we're
Awesome.
all as caddies, we're all trying to find that one golfer that we can work with for the rest of our lives, right? Like,
Gotcha.
you wanna find that guy that you can work with for years on end, that's gonna get to the PGA Tour, and he's gonna win millions of dollars on the PGA Tour, and as a caddy, you'll be able to make some off of that, you know what I mean?
So and I'd love to hear if you're open to sharing if you have a couple in mind who would be a dream to work with, but if not, that's okay too. You don't have to share who your dream client would be.
Wow. That's actually a really good question, and it might sound weird, but I've never really spent any time thinking about it. I would say, like, the dream golfer that I would like to work for is just someone that's fun to be around for a long time and someone that doesn't treat me like a piece of garbage. As long as you're not verbally abusive and you're fun to hang out with, like, that's
Right.
all that
And
matters.
just view you as a counterpart to their success.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I had an opportunity to caddy for Jimmy Walker during PGA Tour Q School towards the end of last year. And for anybody that's familiar with him, you already know. Anybody that's not familiar with Jimmy Walker, he is a PGA Tour golfer. He has won 6 different tournaments on the PGA Tour. One of those was a major championship. So that was really awesome. That was probably like the most well-known golfer that I've caddied for. But there's some guys out there that it would be incredible to work for. Justin Rose seems like he's an incredible human being, and I'd love to be around him. I mean, there's a few different guys that are out there. Bryson DeChambeau would be a really fun person to work for right now just because of everything that he has going on, with YouTube and everything else. It looks like it would just be fun to work with
Right.
him.
And totally.
It would probably be a lot of work though, because of how analytical he is on a golf course and how very detail oriented he is. So you would, I'm sure it was probably difficult for him to find a caddy that he could keep on the bag for a long time because he probably needed more from a caddy than any other golfer around him.
Right. Yeah, but for them too, they're kind of trying to find the right fit as well. So let's say that a pro caddy comes to you and is like, Ryan, you're my guy. I want you, forever or, this next several years to be with me. Do you just travel each time for each tournament? Do you move? What does that look like in terms of changing up your life a bit if someone picks you and is like, you're my go-to guy and I'm going on I'm going to the Masters, I'm going here, I'm going to in a few years to the Ryder Cup, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, one that would be amazing. But 2, it would not force me to have to relocate by any means, and it would actually relieve a lot of stress off of my shoulders because once I get to the point where I have a player that I'm working for full time, especially when they have full status and that they're going to be playing in every single tournament on the schedule that year, I can book all my travel a year in advance. Like I can, as soon as they release the schedule for the season, I can be like, okay, I need to go to this country. I have to go to that city. I have to go to that hotel. I need to get a plane ticket here, a plane ticket there, a rental car here. I can drive there. So logistically, it just makes things so much easier because we have the ability to plan the entire season. And then that also helps reduce the expense of our travel costs because anytime you can book a plane ticket 3 or 4 months in advance versus 3 days in advance, you're saving money. And same with rental cars and hotels. So it would be a huge benefit to have a player that you're working for
Right.
full time,
Well, and
knowing
then you
that
can plan out
you
your
are going
life
to be
too,
there every
knowing the
year.
time you have time off, that you and your wife can do a vacation and you can have
Yeah.
downtime.
Yeah, and then that way, she also knows like, hey, if this is a week where I'm just working from home, then I can travel and be on the road with you. Like we have
Yeah.
some pretty cool events on the Corn Ferry Tour, some pretty cool places that we get to go to. The first 2 weeks we spent in the Bahamas. There's an event coming up here soon that's going to be in Tulum, Mexico, which is an incredible place to go. So, yeah, knowing that you're going to be in those places ahead of time would allow your spouse to be able to like maybe come and travel on the road with you
Yeah.
and get to
Amazing. Well, you
experience some
kind
of
of
these cool
filter it
places.
into your lifestyle. It just sounds like, you're building this whole career and business and to fit into a lifestyle that you want to live, which is fascinating and amazing. That's great. Last question before I have you end would be what has been, I guess, just the biggest change for you mentally, emotionally, having left, career to pursue a new one? What do you think has been the best thing about this for you and your mindset and just overall everything?
Part is just having lived that, just knowing that money is not the answer to everything. I had a really close friend of mine years ago tell me something that really stuck with me, and I've always remembered it. And he said, in life, there are 3 different types of currencies: there's time, there's money, and there's happiness. And you should never sacrifice your time or your happiness just for money. And he could not be more spot on. And I've been able to literally live that in my own life where money is cool and money allows us to do a lot of things, but it is absolutely not the end of the world. And it is not something that you need to have in order to find happiness in your life. And I think if anybody can get to a place in their life where they don't have to rely on money as much, you'd be surprised how much happiness you can find in different things around you.
Sure. That's a really great takeaway, Ryan. I appreciate you sharing that. So, kind of a final way to wrap up and like a final question. And then, of course, I would love for you to tell our audience how people can find you, how pros, if they're listening, can hire
Yeah.
you. But if we can really just end on, the two pieces of advice, which we've kind of touched on throughout the podcast, but the number one piece of advice you have for parents, and then the number one piece of advice you would have for juniors, particularly high school kids who are kind of on that cusp of trying to get into college, maybe have visions of going pro, what advice you would have for them?
Yeah, so for parents, again, I go back to the fact that if you're gonna caddy for your child, make sure that you really establish a trusting relationship with your kid and that you don't just say that it's gonna be how it is, you actually follow up with your actions and make sure that you let them know that during a tournament round when you're caddying for them, they are the boss, not you. It's their choice, it's their decision. You are there in case they need you, and then make sure that you're not, don't try to give them swing tips. Don't try to give them advice. Don't try to like coach them in that situation. Establish that they're allowed to have frustration and some anger, but just give it a time frame. I'll give you 10 seconds. I'll give you 15 seconds. And Tiger Woods said it best. He allows himself 10 footsteps after he makes a bad shot to be as mad as he wants to be. And then after that 10th step, he forgets about it and he moves on. And I think if parents can establish that with their kids on the golf course, those two things, you're the boss and I'll give you a little bit of time to go through your emotions, but then we got to shut it down. We got to move on. I think it'll help a ton.
Love
And
it.
then I think for junior golfers, especially if you're in that high school age, I would really encourage you. This is so difficult because it's just one of those things where when you're in high school, you think everything in the world that's happening around you is like, that's it. Like that's your whole world. And you don't realize how much time you have ahead of you. 12 or 13 or 14 years old, you have 60, 70, 80 years of life left to live. And so you've barely even scratched the surface. So I would really encourage you to just realize you're so young and you have so much time to really focus on or find out what it is that you love and what it is that you enjoy. And if you're playing competitive golf at a high school age and there's any part of you that just isn't happy with it, if you're really frustrated with it, if it causes you more stress and anxiety than it brings you happiness, step away from it and take a break and just don't do it for a little while. Go explore some other things, try some other things, hang out with your friends, do stuff with your parents or your siblings, but just get yourself out of that situation because your life is not dependent on you playing golf in that moment. And you'll have so much time where you can come back to it and you can pick it up. But I think there are so many young golfers that get so much anxiety and so much stress from playing sports in general, not just golf, that once they hit a certain age, they get so burned out on it that they lose the love for it, they lose the passion for it. And golf is one of those things that you can literally do your entire life. And as you get older, you can leverage golf in business relationships, in networking, in job opportunities. And so if you put too much pressure and too much stress on yourself at too young of an age, and you burn yourself out to the point where you never play it ever again, you could potentially be missing out on so many different amazing things that could happen to you later in life that I would say just take a break at a young age because you have so much more time to always come back to it. Just don't kill yourself over it. It's just a game at the end of the day.
Yeah. What a great mindset and perspective, Ryan. I mean, I feel inspired so much just talking to you, and I know that this episode will resonate with so many parents, and I hope that parents of other sports even listen to this podcast just because you have so many great takeaways and life lessons. And I really appreciate you being here. So before we wrap up, can you please tell our audience who's listening how everyone can find you and connect with you online?
Yeah, the easiest way right now is on Instagram. It's at Ryan Murray, which is spelled RyanMRRY. Or you could find me on TikTok at Ryan Murray _caddy, and that is spelled RyanMurray _caddy, CAD.
last and final question for you, Ryan. Where are you headed next? I know you mentioned a couple upcoming trips. So where is the next tournament that you are heading on? Because I know it was hard to coordinate syncing up our schedules. So I feel very honored that I could catch you before you head out again for another round of caddying for the pros.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm getting to go back to Buenos Aires, Argentina next. And then from there, I'll be heading to Santiago, Chile the week after. So 2 weeks from today of us recording this podcast, I'll be flying to Argentina, and then
Amazing.
we have a tournament there. And then the following week, we have a tournament in Santiago, Chile, and then I'll be coming home from there.
Fantastic. Well, I'm excited, and I love that you post on Instagram, and I'm excited to continue to follow your journey. And I can say I knew you win.
Yeah.
When you sign off with a really big time player and stuff. But really enjoyed our conversation, Ryan. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you thank you so much, Alicia. I appreciate you.